don't know if the glue that they are putting your eyelashes on is seeping into your brain, but you are an idiot. You just beheaded that guy? You're supposed to give head, not behead. Remember January 6th? That was the day that I had just switched over. I'd been doing eggs with olive oil, and I switched back to real butter that morning. And then I was watching TV, and people were freaking out because a few people with a Lego set or something showed up at the Capitol. Anyway, let's talk about boner pills for a minute, and then we'll move on the other side. Sydney Sweeney's bathwater here. That's pretty good. All right, guys, how are you? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. Hope you had a great weekend. It is September 29th, 2025. And yes, that's right. I am going to Australia. Just a quick reminder, daverubin.com/events if you want to join us in Melbourne with Sky News' Peta Credlin, October 21st in Sydney with former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson, and October 27th in Brisbane with journalist Andrew Neil. There'll probably be some other surprises. All sorts of things happening. And yes, Copal is back if you would like to drink some of the best tequila you've ever had. I think we have just under 1,000 bottles left in this shipment, and then we're probably out till Thanksgiving. It is drinkcopal.com. And we got a big show for you. A big show for you. It's just a big old show. We got a lot of paper. We got a pen. I feel like we can do a little more funny stuff today. And, you know, it's been obviously a rough couple of weeks and none of that's going anywhere. But we're just mixing it up with just a lot today because there's a lot happening from the feds going into Portland. Thank God. It's about time. That city has been an epic crap hole for about a decade. The James Comey indictment. We're going to flash back to the way the Democrats used to be. If you remember a guy named Bill Clinton who did a funny thing with the cigar and an intern. But before that, he was president. Well, he was president when he did that. But we found an ad from '92 when he was running for president that just shows the profoundly stark difference between the Democrats of, say, 30 years ago versus the Democrats of today. And not that I want to hint to the Democrats how to be a little bit better, but there are ways they could be a bit better. And we'll do some Monday with Maher stuff and a bunch more. But let's dive in because Scott Jennings, you know Scott Jennings over there on CNN, he is the one sane man who sits at that table with the assorted, rotating cast of crazy people. They had him go up against this kid. I guess his name is Adam Mockler from MeidasTouch, which is just like a far left whatever. It's just one of these website far lefty things. He's this little kid. They put him on their generic lefty talking points, and Jennings tries to explain what's going on here and how there is no symmetry when it comes to where the violence is coming from these days. Take a look.
The broader point here is Donald Trump endlessly deflects and tries to blame it on the other side when he is the one responsible for amping up the tension in America. And I've spent all of my formative years throughout high school, throughout college, looking to the president, who I'm supposed to be able to look up to, and seeing somebody who's trying to place blame on the left, who's amping up the rhetoric constantly. And yeah, it's not good.
So you think it's Donald Trump's fault that a deranged leftist climbed up to the top of a building and shot up the ICE facility, not once now, but twice in Texas?
I think it's Donald Trump's fault that America has gotten to this heated place. I think that
no responsibility for the radicalization on the left that's causing this violent outburst.
That 29-year-old is radicalized by online communities and online algorithms. I'm not going to blame that directly on Trump, but
can't you just take responsibility for it?
Oh,
he's on the left.
Me? But let's not do the he has to take responsibility because he's a Democrat.
I'm a 22-year-old YouTuber. You want me to take more responsibility than the president of the United States?
I want you to understand.
I'm a 22-year-old YouTuber.
I want you to understand that we are in the middle of an epidemic of left-wing violence. They're attacking ICE. They shot Charlie. It's happening all over the country. We have these Free Palestine people running around trying to burn down the Pennsylvania governor's mansion. On and on
then
and
maybe
on.
the president
It's not Trump's fault
the president of the
that
United
the left
States
is radicalized to the point of saying, we're done talking and we're going to start shooting.
As always, Scott just laying out the truth. Now, the reason I want to show you that clip, though, is I think it's more indicative of the problem that the left is having right now, where there is almost nobody, and I really mean that in a literal sense, there is almost nobody sensible left to put on any of these shows, right? They keep, whether it's Piers Morgan's show, or it's these CNN shows, or it's The View, whatever these rotating shows are where they're just throwing people in these chairs and hoping something sticks. There's just nobody left on the left that makes any sense. So there you have a 22-year-old kid who, when he gets confronted with some facts, well, I'm just a 22-year-old YouTuber, so, you know, what do I know about anything? And it's like, well, you were brought on that show to purportedly to defend the views of the left, right? Which just becomes attacking Trump. But there's just nobody left in the Democrat Party that is a moderate or a centrist willing to do some of the things that will actually make people's lives better. So what are the things that would make people's lives better? I don't know. It's pretty simple stuff, actually. It's basically, you know, having roads that are clean and policing that makes sense, and having public spaces where you're not going to be accosted by a jihadist or a drug addict or a lunatic, or just that roads are going to be taken over, and all of those things. So now let's jump over to what's going on in Portland. So you guys know, basically since COVID, but even before that, Portland has been sort of a mini, people forget about Portland because you usually think of San Francisco as like the drug Antifa capital, and obviously we've seen all those videos. Portland's like a mini version of it, and there has been an ongoing, since COVID, but in some sense it really is before, an ongoing assault by these masked lunatics, usually Antifa types, and then it gets a little bit of the jihadis in there and some genderqueer whack jobs, and they've been burning down the Portland federal judge building. They've been federal courthouse, sorry. They've just been wrecking mayhem all over the city for a long time. Nobody's doing anything about it. The former mayor of Portland literally had to move what condo he was living in because they were attacking him, even though he was a lefty. Like, he wasn't even lefty enough for the true anarchists. So before we get to the feds showing up there, here's just a compilation that was making around. This is quite jarring, actually. Like, joking aside for a second, it's kind of hard to watch this when you just see the level of drug abuse and mayhem and just sickness on the streets. It's about 45 seconds. Take a look.
Oh, man.
You okay?
Yeah.
Down. No, I have Narcan on me.
Here.
Stop! Seriously!
Stop! You can take all of your water. If you want to give us your water, you can take all your water.
Stay in the... Can you stay out of the road? Stay out of the road. Can you stay out of the road?
This is death.
Being on the streets, yeah.
This is death.
All right, so I was a little 50-50 on whether we should show that or not, because it's kind of like there's a obviously a sadness. Like, at a human level, there is a sadness, particularly as it relates to these people that are on what I assume is fentanyl or like some super meth or whatever that is. By the way, some of those screaming people will probably end up on the CNN set soon enough as the representative of the left. But there is a sadness related to that. But it's important that people see that, right? Because what the media does, and that's what we're going to illustrate in just a second, is that the second Trump then does something about it, right? Black people killing black people in Chicago. Can we get the numbers on the shootings in Chicago this weekend? When that happens, nobody says a word about it because it doesn't fit the narrative. Then when Trump tries to do something about it, like he did in DC, clean up the streets, then he's mean and whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's the exact same thing that's happening in Portland. So Portland has been an absolute disaster for years now. Nobody is doing anything. It's getting worse. And by the way, when you let these things get worse, it's not just bad for the drug addict and the average Hamas Antifa guy. It's bad for that lady at the end there. This is death here. Like, you're trying to walk your kid through a park and all hell's breaking loose. So finally Donald Trump has done, or finally the federal government has done something. It took Donald Trump getting elected to do it. We sent in the feds, and here they are going after Antifa, a group that the Democrats constantly tell us doesn't exist, although apparently, according in this video, they seem to exist.
Get back!
Back down. Go back into your little troll hole.
All right, before I comment on that, we got the numbers out of Chicago. 16 were shot in Chicago, 4 dead this weekend. But remember, if you talk about that, you're a racist. As for Portland, so you can see it's this crazed combination of these COVID queers wearing the masks. You get some Hamas people, you get Antifa people. This is the same set of people, whether they all have laminated cards like, I'm in Antifa, look at me, or not. This is what Antifa is, right? This is these group of anarchists who are out on the street. And by the way, if you didn't want the police to show up, if you didn't want the feds to show up and everything else, stop taking over the streets, stop destroying a once great city of Portland, right? My favorite basketball of all team, the 1992 Portland Trailblazers, Clyde the Glide, Terry Porter, Buck Williams, Jerome Kersey, Kevin Duckworth, Cliff Robinson, the list goes on and on. But you guys did it. And now finally someone is doing something about it. So here is a sane, not drugged person in Portland who is happy that they're going to remove some of these lunatics from the streets.
I am so happy that Trump is sending the National Guard in here. I live in this building. We both live in this building. We've been asking for help for months, and we're finally going to get it.
So, like that guy, I don't know much about him. He was wearing a Trump shirt, so I think we can assume he's a Trump supporter, but probably just like a decent guy that lives in Portland. And what he would prefer is to be able to walk his dog without someone injecting his dog with meth. That's baked into the American dream right there. Like, that's it. And then you have these masked whack jobs that are on the street because they seem to want more mayhem and more chaos and everything else. So now let's jump over to the televised mental institution known as MSNBC. Here's Eugene Daniels, and I'm pretty sure this guy stole my brooch. I don't know where my brooch is. I think he took it. But here he is, and what they really want you to think is that Antifa doesn't exist, or this has all been fabricated, and it's just because Donald Trump wants to take over the cities, which note, nowhere where it's safe and clean, say Miami, is Donald Trump sending troops.
Now, he's been obsessed with Portland since 2020, right? Like when there were protests, and at night there were some folks that, busted out some windows, some fires. That did happen. But what's happening now, there are protests against ICE, but they're smaller in number. No one has died. There's been some injuries. But what we just heard from the president there talking about Antifa, which means anti-fascist. So if you're against Antifa, that's what it is. It's not a group. It's not a group that you can designate. And what we're hearing from him seems to be an excuse for the troops, for Stephen Miller, who's now kind of leading this domestic terrorism group that they've created, to do whatever they.
I have to say, I'm really looking forward to the day where there's technology that I can just wear something on my head and transmit my thoughts to the audience, because it's like we're all thinking the same thing watching that. First off, this guy's just like a complete caricature of whatever. Okay, fine. What does he do? He does all the standard things. He doesn't want you to think Antifa exists. When there's some fires at night and some busted windows, yeah, that doesn't matter, which, by the way, that's the exact same thing. Remember when there were the riots in LA a couple months back, and they were like, well, it's just where the buildings are downtown, not where too many people live. It's like, what is wrong with you people? Because you guys apparently never have to pay the price for your own policies. Then he wants you to think that because it's Antifa, anti-fascist, that they are anti-fascist, that they're fighting the fascists, which is just completely backwards because they are the foot soldiers of the Democrat Party, which is in complete lockstep with the corporate media, which that actually is fascism. If I have to teach, I know teaching someone at MSNBC, it's not gonna stick. But what I really want to connect that to is that still, after all of this, after the return of Donald Trump, after the cultural shift that we've seen, after even just the last 2 weeks of seeing some sort of revival of the American spirit as it pertains to Charlie Kirk being assassinated, these people never stop because they want to progress. That's in the word, and it doesn't matter where they're going, but they're usually driving off a cliff. And you might, as you are going full steam ahead towards a cliff, you might, in the old days, there were a couple old school liberals in the car, and they would go, guys, this is a bit much. Maybe let's not do that. And maybe we shouldn't be for jihad. And maybe we shouldn't allow for all the drugs on the street and the burning down of the buildings. And we should stop calling everybody racist. But the liberals, the good liberals, have jumped off the bus. The bus now is careening. It is careening towards the chasm. But why? Because it's progressing. It doesn't matter what it's progressing towards, it's progressing. And somehow the road has been slicked up and oiled up by the mainstream media. So here is Jon Stewart, a guy who I was an intern on The Daily Show literally 26 years ago in 1999, many lifetimes ago. And he, at one point, was a decent liberal, and he could have actually been the guy, even more so than than Bill Maher, because he was younger and the show had more of like a cultural something like right in the middle of everything. He could have been the guy to lead the Democrats and say, you don't go down this road. But instead, he's all in. So to the backdrop of Charlie being assassinated, to the backdrop of Trump cleaning up the cities, caring about the people of Chicago, caring about the people of Portland, caring about the average citizen who you guys have given up on and you want to live like some pathetic, needy loser in a city that's just complete anarchy, chaos. Here's Jon Stewart on who he's concerned about right now.
I just want to say this to Trump's defenders. You don't have to bend over backwards trying to make Trump's authoritarian power grabs seem like the rule of law. He does not give a f*** anymore. He's saying it straight up. Trump is saying, the people like dictators. Trump is saying, I hate my opponents and I want them punished. And Trump is saying, I'll use all the levers of government at my disposal to accomplish that goal. So you can get on board with that and say, I'm with that. Or you can join the rest of us and fight like hell for this constitutional republic.
Good to see that they're toning down the rhetoric, right? Yeah. I'm not bending over backwards here. I'm completely on board everything Trump is doing. And again, why is it that you tolerant, diverse lefties, you never care about the average guy? Jon Stewart, what I would like to ask you, and I'd be happy to do a show with you, why don't you give a flying fuck about that man in Portland whose condo had been taken over for months and had to deal with that sort of chaos? Why don't you, Jon Stewart, every Monday, I think you get $20 million a year to host a show once a week on Mondays, why don't you talk about the amount of black people being killed in Chicago every week? I know we all know the answers to these things, but I'm trying to enlighten Jon Stewart a little bit. So no one's bending over backwards to make excuses for Trump. Donald Trump's doing exactly what he promised, closing the border, getting law and order. Again, he's not sending federal troops into cities randomly. Right? He's going into the places that are the worst of the worst. And what did he do? Well, in DC itself, he basically cleaned it up over a weekend. Over a weekend. And by the way, the Democrats can do it too, because remember when the Chinese leader Xi Jinping came to San Francisco and for 3 days Gavin Newsom got rid of all of the homeless people? I don't know what he did to them. There is a rumor going around that he put them in a meat grinder and then he grind them up and he puts all of their goo into a big vat and that's what he uses as hair gel. I don't know if it's true. I did hear it from a pretty reliable source. It is what it is. But so no one's bending over backwards to support Trump right now. He's doing all of the right things. The rule of law, again, it's you guys that don't care about the rule of law because it's when your cities are burning down and then someone comes in to try to defend the rule of law that you get upset. And then that Trump's trying to punish his opponents. What did they just spend the last 10 years doing to him? Making sure that he couldn't do business in New York, trying to send him to jail, Russia, multiple impeachments, blah, 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 blah. So, all right, let's put Jon Stewart aside for just a second and talk about Bill Maher, who has made major strides. He is trying desperately, I think, to tell the Democrats, you've got to stop doing this. Bill, ironically, well, if we were to go with my metaphor, my analogy before, so you got this bus and it's careening down the road and there's a chasm up there and it's slicked up because the progressives keep slicking it up with their media cohorts and it's going and everyone's super psyched because it's going real fast and we're progressing and we don't know where we're going, but we're going, right? Well, Jon Stewart is fully one of the guys with his foot on the pedal, just like, let's keep going, let's keep demonizing everybody else. Bill Maher is what I said basically doesn't exist anymore. So Joe Rogan jumped off the bus and I jumped off the bus and RFK and Tulsi, everybody jumped off the bus, moved to MAGA country. Bill Maher is still on the bus and he is trying, and it is worth trying, whether you agree with how he votes or not. It is a worthy cause to tell your own side you're a bunch of morons. And that's what Bill does for a living every Friday.
If we are ever going to get back to the old America, that's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5. Isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say math is racist, queers for Palestine, looting is cool, healthy at any weight. If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say
Yeah, so he's trying, and that is a worthy fight. We'll connect that to what I mentioned up top about the 1992 Bill Clinton ad in a second, because they weren't always this crazy. But what has happened? Foxes are in the hen house, inmates are running the asylum. We could do various metaphors on this. And then you end up with guys like this. This is a quick one, but like this right here. This is Tim Walz. No, in this case, he's not asking for Donald Trump to be killed, which he's done a bunch of lately. But this type of thing is now what is in charge of the party.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
But there absolutely is. It's called the First Amendment. It's in the Bill of Rights, and it absolutely protects against hate speech and misinformation. If it didn't protect against misinformation, you'd probably be in jail. Joseph gave me this one because I think this sort of illustrates really who he is. Yeah, he's just Ralph Wiggum at this point. I did good. But now I want to connect this to what I said earlier. The Democrats did not have to be this way. They were not always this way. We saw this ad. This is from 1992. Bill Clinton and Al Gore. Al Gore, a man who sold after he became vice president, his defunct cable news channel to Qatar for $500 million. Good for him. But here they are, and listen to this ad and tell me, do they sound like Democrats of 2025 or Republicans of 2025?
They're a new generation of Democrats, Bill Clinton and Al Gore, and they don't think the way the old Democratic Party did. They've called for an end to welfare as we know it, so welfare can be a second chance, not a way of life. They've sent a strong signal to criminals by supporting the death penalty, and they've rejected the old tax and spend politics. Clinton's balanced 12 budgets, and they've proposed a new plan investing in people, detailing $140 billion in spending cuts they'd make right now. Clinton Gore, for people, for a change.
Clinton Gore, for God's sakes, what happened to that crew? What happened to that crew? I mean, like, it's really incredible, right, guys? Like, you get it. That was the Democrat Party then. Now, you may not have been a Democrat then, or you may realize that they were wrong about whatever it is. But think how out of touch that is. That's why Bill Clinton, if there was any sense around anything that's going on with the Democrats right now, Bill Clinton, former two-time president, loved by so many people for all his flaws and maybe a couple Epstein flights and everything else and a couple of rapes and the thing with the intern and all that stuff. Like, Bill Clinton should be the elder of the party right now, guiding all of this. Obviously, it can't be Barack Obama because he is one of the sort of leftist radicals, like very openly and obviously and just increasingly, I think it's becoming obvious to people just like an utter fraud. But Bill Clinton has no influence in the party. Al Gore has no influence in the party. What did they want there? They wanted to end welfare. Does that sound like what the Democrats want now? They're about to vote a communist into New York who's going to put everybody on the government dole. They supported the death penalty and they wanted harsher punishment for crime. Does that sound like the Democrats? They wanted balanced budgets. Does that sound like the Democrats, where now they just want to print money? So there was something sane once, and now they've got the bus and they've got the chasm and they don't know what to do. We'll have more on those people in just a second, but first, be better now. If you or your partner is over 55 and dealing with bladder urgency, you know it's more than just a minor inconvenience. Trips, outings, and travels start to feel like they're all about finding the bathroom. And when one of you has a hard time, you both feel it. That's why so many people have turned to Betterman and Better Woman. These are clinically tested formulas trusted by thousands for more than 25 years. They help reduce urgency, cut down frequent trips, and support deeper, more restful sleep. All natural with no known side effects. They also give you something just as important: more confidence, more control, and more freedom to enjoy life together. Get them at BeBetterNow.com. That's BeBetterNow.com. And for our listeners, you'll get 10% off your first order with code Rubin10. Live fully with confidence and control. Okay, so there really is just nobody left. And I think we have to kind of acknowledge that and figure out how to move with that. My position, my position has always been, at least for the last 2 years, that what you want to do is widen that tent on the right as much as possible. You want to bring in and work with as many old school libs and conservatives so that we can have something that is pro-America, that's willing to agree to disagree, and it really just stick with pro-America, and then you can get as many people in as possible. But we do have this bus that is going out of control. And I suppose that even if you don't like the Democrat Party and you don't like the progressive ideas and you don't like getting stabbed when you walk your dog and all of those things, you should still want them to be a little bit better, right? It would be nice, right? Even if I'm never going to vote for these people, it would be nice if they would be a little bit better, but they simply don't know what to do. So I said Bill Clinton should be like the figurehead of the thing right now. Well, the other problem is that they had an auto pen that was president, so he's completely gone. And then they had a woman that nobody thought was qualified, who can't say a complete declarative sentence while making anything close to a functional thought. How about that? And here she is, Kamala Harris, on Joy Reid's show. And just listen to this drivel. We've got Trump out there doing things, right? Redoing trade deals, whether you like it or not. He's doing things. Doing the border, whether you like it or not. He's doing things. Working on peace, Russia, Ukraine, Middle East, et cetera, whether you like it or not. Getting woke out of schools. He's actually functionally doing things. And this is what we very narrowly avoided.
And you think this country is going to survive this regime?
Only if we fight for the country we love. And listen, that's another piece of this, which is I really want to remind people of the light that is in each of us, even in these moments of darkness, especially in these moments of darkness. We have to remember nobody gives us our light. It's ours. So let's see it in ourselves. Let's see it in each other. It may be a little flicker right now because they're certainly trying to dim it, but don't let them extinguish our light.
Guys, there is a light in you, and that would solve all your problems. I'm pretty sure she just explained the plot of Men in Black 2. Wasn't there a woman who, the light of Zarathustra or something? Anyway, it's just nonsense. But okay, I get it. Somebody watches that. Someone's sitting there watching Joy Reid's podcast with Kamala Harris. There is a light in me. I'm going to go burn down a federal courthouse. Anyway, the demonization of Donald Trump just absolutely continues. Again, to the backdrop of the murder of Charlie, to Donald Trump trying to clean up the cities. What do they want you to do? They want you to think he's a criminal. They want you to think he wants you to die because he hates science. And they want you to think he's a tyrannical maniac who's never going to have another election to go.
With each day, we are witnessing a president who has lined his own pockets and those of the super rich while he raises tariffs on the backs of working people, cuts SNAP and Medicaid, ignores science, ends the war on cancer, and deploys the United States military to the streets of America. And let us be clear, we predicted all that. But CBC, what I did not predict was the capitulation. The universities, law firms, media corporations, the titans of industry who have been so quick to kneel before a tyrant.
It's just incredible. Everything they say is backwards. Everything they say is backwards. Who lined their pockets? Yeah, Donald Trump's doing this for money, you dullard. You know who is doing it for money, perhaps? Let's say there's a lot more evidence that he's doing it for money. Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a community organizer. I'm going to guess they make, 70 grand a year? Yeah, it's tough work. Somebody's got to do it. And then he was a senator for a little bit. He's now worth $70 million. Donald Trump lost money the first time he was in the Oval Office. You guys shuttered his hotels, made his businesses in New York virtually useless and worthless. You took the DC Trump Hotel, which was one of the coolest hotels I've ever been to in my life, and you yanked that thing away from him too. It's now a Waldorf Astoria, if I'm not mistaken. That he's doing this to enrich himself. Yes, he put troops on the street to clean up the mess that you guys made. The war on cancer. What are you talking about? He's bringing in Bobby and Jay Bhattacharya and people to look at our health in a whole new way. It's just, but again, it's just, what do they have? We're progressing for the sake of progressing, and we got to scare the fuck out of you because they're chasing us, and that's why we've got to put the pedal to the metal and fly over the freaking cliff. Another guy that's doing that, who they are still, I mean, they're just still teasing this guy for 28, is of course Gavin Newsom, and listen to just a series of lies from this freak.
The fact that you had a president of the United States, or at least former president that was running again, who wanted to put America in reverse, wanted to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. On voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, on women's rights, not just access to abortion, but access to contraceptive care.
No, it's Monday. Mondays, I'm like a little more like had the weekend, chilled out in the pool, but it's just, no, everything he said is complete. First off, stop saying LGBT. The T and the Q have nothing to do with the L's and the G's and the B's, and they better start realizing that soon. That's number one. He's not coming for women's rights. All he did was kick abortion back to the states. Actually, the Supreme Court did that, and I have not heard one story. I got into a debate about this over the weekend with somebody. Somebody please tell me, when they keep telling you he's coming for women's rights and they say that's abortion. Abortion is killing babies, but somehow that means women's rights. Can someone point out in the 2 years since Roe v. Wade has been reversed, anyone that didn't get an abortion that wanted one? Isn't it funny you haven't heard one story about that? We were told that there's going to be, all these young girls with wire hangers in the back alleys somewhere being, bludgeoned to death while they get rid of the baby for healthcare purposes. And that just hasn't happened. So every single thing these people say is an abs. He's going to take away civil rights. Yes, that's right. Black people are going to have separate water fountains with grape juice in them. Like, it's just so stupid. What? I don't even know why do people even think that's racist? Grape juice is good. Or grape soda, it's good. It is good. It's not racist. They did an episode of Seinfeld about it. It's not racist if you like it. Like saying, all right. Anyway, Newsom's an idiot. Here's that in AI form.
You're serious? You don't know? Everybody knows you never go full retard. What do you mean?
We're blending the show today with some of the silly, with some of the serious. But yes, it's not just, look, it's Kamala with this. It's Newsom with this. Here is Massachusetts Representative Seth Moulton, and you'd think that we're toning down the rhetoric these days. He's just calling ICE the Gestapo.
How are we going to handle immigration? We all hate what Trump is doing with ICE and these masked people running around like the Gestapo. But what is Democrats' immigration policy? How are we going to take on the challenges of the future?
Yeah, okay, Gestapo. I should make note that I said grape juice there, but the guys are pointing out it's grape soda that is the stereotype. But grape soda, I have grape soda. Someone could go into the kitchen right now and I keep grape soda here in the house. We like grape soda. It's not racist. Pro-grape. But okay, so the ICE thing, we know the ICE thing is now wildly out of control. I mean, for months and months and months, we've been talking about this, that they have been ramping up the attacks on ICE. They for some reason, they love their foot soldiers out on the streets with masks, and they wanted you to wear masks during COVID. But now the people who are cleaning up the cities, they don't want them wearing masks, and they don't want them wearing masks. As I pointed out last week, this is Spider-Man 101. This is all superheroes. Why do they wear masks? It's not to protect themselves. It's to protect their families. But there now have been several shootings at ICE facilities and a bunch of Democrats showing up, really for media purposes. But listen to this from Andy No, who, as you know, has been covering Antifa probably more than anybody else over the last couple of years. Joshua John, the man who carried out a deadly shooting on an ICE facility in Dallas, left behind a literal anti-ICE message on a rifle cartridge where he killed himself. John comes from a liberal biracial family in Fairview, Texas. His mother is critical of gun laws in her state. His sister, Kyoko John, is a woke woman who was a supporter of Beto O'Rourke. The 3 people shot at the ICE facility ended up being migrant detainees. 2 of them died. The attack occurred in the context of months of Democrat politicians, liberals, and leftists encouraging violent direct action against ICE. Antifa and far-left extremists have been releasing names, photos, and addresses of agents urging comrades to kill them. In July, members of a North Texas Antifa cell allegedly carried out a shooting ambush on an ICE facility in Alvarado. One officer was shot in the neck but narrowly survived. The nightly violent attacks on ICE facility in Portland by Antifa remain ongoing. So, of course, that is one of the things that Donald Trump sent the troops into Portland to deal with. But do you realize how insane this is? So this radical leftist who is being told that, you know, just like the clip we just showed you, that ICE is actually the Gestapo and they're unpersoning people and they're driving cars out and just grabbing random people, Abuela and everybody else. And it's all just complete nonsense. And you also see, as Andy points out, the reason they're wearing the masks is to protect their own families, because Antifa, which is an actual organization, is coordinating on Reddit and some of these other websites to dox these people and threaten their children and all of these other things. Maybe guys, maybe it's just enough. Maybe it's enough progressing. Maybe you guys have progressed to the point where you're radicalizing people who are then shooting ICE facilities, and in this case, shot 2 migrants that were there. It's sort of like the Charlie thing, right? So this Tyler Robinson kid gets completely radicalized either at school or online or whatever it is, some combination thereof, culturally, whatever, dating the trans person, thinks that the way to stop whatever it is that he's been fooled to think Charlie thinks about trans people or something, the way to stop him is to kill him. Well, now you killed him, your life is over, right? Because it's either death penalty or life in jail for you, for sure. You've ruined the life of your trans roommate, girlfriend, boyfriend, lover, whatever that is. And in some sense, it's exactly what happened with this ICE kid. So this kid who shot up the Dallas ICE facility, he ends up murdering 2 migrants that are there. So everyone might want to take a breath and pause for a moment, but seemingly we cannot, because the corporate press and the Democrats will not stop. And you're not going to believe who Eric Swalwell, a man who banged a Chinese spy, is blaming the ICE shooting on. Well, you will believe it. Go.
And also, I just want to put in perspective, we had another shooting this week where a sick individual went to an ICE facility and fired on and killed a detainee there and wounded another. He may have been targeting ICE officials, but what we know so far is that he very much was online. So this is the second political assassination in the last 3 weeks where you have to wonder, if the FBI is so distracted to carry out these prosecutions on behalf of Donald Trump, are they able to protect the public from sick individuals who are willing to carry out these sick executions?
Well, you almost got it there. Now, yes, have they been radicalized online? There seemingly is a lot of evidence of that. You sort of obfuscated around the point that they are both lefties. They were radicalized online to your ideology. You're a progressive. It's what you guys are pushing. You guys are out there all the time calling Trump Nazi and fascist and all of those things. But did you see what he really did there? What that segment was about the Comey stuff, and that Trump is now going after, or that the Justice Department, I should say, is going after Comey. So what he really wanted you to think is, see, they're wasting resources by looking into these ICE things and that, or by looking into Comey, and now that is what's causing these shootings at ICE. It's completely absurd. We have more though on shootings, because this happened yesterday. It's I think disconnected from the other things we're talking about, but it is worth mentioning because it's quite horrific. This is from News Nation. 4 people have been killed and 8 others injured in a shooting and fire at a church in Michigan on Sunday, police said. The suspected shooter, 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford from Burton, Michigan, drove his vehicle into the front of a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints church before opening fire on churchgoers, authorities said. Sanford died after a shootout with law enforcement, they said. 2 of the confirmed dead were killed by gunfire, and the other 2 victims were discovered in the church, said Grand Blanc Township Police Chief William Rene, who did not say how the latter pair died. When the shooting broke out, members inside the church shielded children and moved them to safety, authorities said. At some point during the shooting, a fire broke out, which the suspect is believed to have set using gasoline. The FBI said the shooting is being investigated as an act of targeted violence. So look, there's no evidence that this is connected to leftism or for political reasons or anything else. The only reason I'm showing you that right there is A, it's quite horrific. Like, whether it's a church, or a synagogue or anything else. I mean, you are attacking people in places of worship. It is just evil. Of course, we know what the Democrats, they're already doing it. What are they going to do? Well, we better take away their guns, even though he literally poured gasoline to burn the place down. There's always another way to kill people, whether they stab you or strap on suicide bombs or anything else. But all of this is to the backdrop of we gotta calm down. As a nation, we gotta calm down right now and figure out what's what. But when I say we, I basically mean the progressives. If you think that Donald Trump and the Trump administration and MAGA and all these people, if you think they're being mean and they're using too much of the federal government to do things and you don't like when your cities get cleaned up and all those things, let's say that's really your position. You might for a moment want to pause and say, okay, is anything we're doing giving fuel for Trump to do these things? Because imagine it the other way. Imagine if on that bus that I told you about before, imagine if all those good libs had stayed on that bus and the progressives started saying crazy things. They're going down the road and they're like, we're progressing. We're chopping off kids' dicks and making them girls. We're progressing. We're telling everyone this place is racist. We're progressing. We're blowing apart the borders. If the good libs had had enough energy, wherewithal, if they had had the balls, right, the moxie to stand up to these guys, then we wouldn't be in this situation. But we are, and we're all going to have to deal with the fallout of that. Let's talk about balance of nature for a minute, and then we'll have more on that Comey indictment, which also they are not happy about. Sorry, suck it. If you're taking balance of nature, the smartest way to stay consistent is by becoming a preferred customer. That means your supplements are delivered automatically every 28 days, no remembering to reorder, no running out, no hassle. And here's the best part. Preferred customers always get the lowest price we offer with free shipping every single month. Your order just shows up at your door right when you need it. On top of that, you'll even get your own personal health coach at no extra cost. That's one-on-one support to help you stay on track, celebrate your wins, and keep moving forward towards your goals. So if you're ready to save money, stay consistent, and make your health routine effortless, becoming a preferred customer is the way to go. Just visit balanceofnature.com and sign up with code Rubin. Okay, so former FBI Director James Comey has now officially been indicted by the Department of Justice. Let's dive in. This from Fox News. Former FBI Director James Comey was indicted by a grand jury on 2 counts, alleged false statements within jurisdiction of the legislative branch and obstruction of congressional proceeding, Fox News Digital has learned. Comey will reportedly turn himself in on Friday, and his arraignment is set for 10 a.m. October 9th in Alexandria Courtroom 600 before District Judge Michael Nachmanoff. Fox News Digital exclusively reported in July that Comey was under criminal investigation by the FBI. The probe into Comey centered on whether he lied to Congress during his September 30th, 2020 testimony about his handling of the original Trump-Russia probe at the FBI, known inside the Bureau as Crossfire Hurricane. The indictment also alleges Comey made a false statement when he stated he did not authorize someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source. According to the indictment, that statement was false. Okay, so I don't want to do like 20 years of rehashing all the Trump stuff. Here's the basics. The basics are, we now know that the Obama administration, through Comey and several of these other guys, Andrew McCabe and others, likely John Brennan, that they basically fabricated the entire Russia hoax. The mainstream media ran with it. They laundered the lies into the New York Times and everything else, which ultimately led to Donald Trump's the first round impeachment. It then led to many of the court cases. It led to them trying to put this guy in jail, being unable to do business in New York. All of these things were connected, right? If you're looking at the abuse of power, the actual power structure did everything, threw in the kitchen sink to destroy Donald Trump. Now, the Department of Justice, which has largely been cleaned up, and we have good people involved in this administration right now, well, they're looking at it and they're going, well, how did this happen? Who were these anonymous sources that were doing things like the Steele dossier that led to the ultimate impeachment of Donald Trump and everything else? Here we've got a bit more from Greg Price. Here's the Comey indictment. He's been indicted for lying to Congress about authorizing Person 3, probably Andy McCabe, to serve as an anonymous source in leaks to the media. That's from September of 2020. Now, interestingly, what the media now has to do is, because the media was all about Donald Trump being impeached and the walls are closing in and they're going to get him this time, right? It was always about to happen. the entire time. Now they have to go all in to make Comey a hero. Here is Joe Scarborough trying just that.
It bears repeating. You do this, you turn the person you hate into a martyr. You make them bigger than ever. You unite people behind them. Donald Trump understood this in his own political campaign, and yet he's now making Comey a martyr for the rule of law.
No, you douchebag. He's not making him a martyr. He's trying, the Department of Justice is trying to figure out, was James Comey involved in perhaps the biggest political scandal of our time, which was spying on Donald Trump as a candidate before he was elected, and then a completely concocted Russia hoax that the election was stolen to undermine everything he did in office and eventually impeach him and try to put him in jail. So figuring out what is true there might actually be good. And this is interesting because when they're very concerned, well, he's talking about jailing political opponents and he wants vengeance and all of these things. But for some reason, when they go on MSNBC and call for those exact things about Donald Trump, nobody has problems with that. Here is Comey on Jen Psaki's show, former White House spokesperson Jen Psaki, now journalist, wink, in June of 2020, talking about how he, the former head of the FBI, would like to see Donald Trump in prison.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
So Comey, now that they're looking at you and the things you've done, can you explain why did you want, just so glibly, no, we'll just throw him in a double wide, he'll eat there and shower there. Why? For what reason? What did Donald Trump do wrong? Oh, it turns out he did nothing wrong. It was you people concocting a Russia hoax around him, and now you might end up in the double wide with a boyfriend named Bubba. Drop the soap, my friend. And what is this all about? Well, much of it, as what I just read to you, is that Andrew McCabe, it now sounds like, is the anonymous source that Comey basically said, go ahead and become the anonymous source on this fabricated story. And that is that's the sort of the genesis of all of this, what they might nab Comey on. So here's McCabe now doing the rounds, and it's just, Trump is just mean. He's just, you end up being mean when they try to destroy you for a decade.
There's only one thing to make of it, Jake. It is absolutely what the president himself characterized it as. It's vengeance. This is the revenge tour. It's the tour he promised when he ran for office in 2024. It's what most of us who have fallen in his crosshairs before expected, and it's what we're seeing now.
Andy, you had Trump in your crosshairs by acting as an anonymous source given authorization by the FBI Director James Comey to fabricate a nonsensical story around Russia to destroy the incoming president of the United States. Well, not only incoming, but to destroy him before he even became the incoming president, but then once he was president of the United States. Here's J.D. Vance trying to explain that in a little more of a calm way.
Well, there's certainly going to be more indictments coming over the next 3.5 years of the Trump administration, but we're always going to let the law drive this stuff and the facts of the case and not political motivations, which frankly makes us so much different from the Biden administration, where they indicted not just the president of the United States, but so many people who were just engaged in the basic job of politics, who were engaged in policymaking, who disagreed with the Biden administration, and because that they faced prosecution from that same administration. If you look at the Comey indictment, Martha, this was a grand jury indictment delivered in Alexandria, Virginia, not exactly a hotbed of Donald Trump's political support. There were three requested indictments. The grand jury returned 2 of those 3 indictments. So I think they showed they were judicious. I think that it showed clearly that there were a couple of things that James Comey did wrong. And to the people who are saying that this is all political, look, if you look at our track record in the Trump administration, there have been people who have been prosecuted, who have been political allies, who agree with our politics. There have been people who disagree with our politics. We're not letting politics drive this. We're letting the requirements of the justice system and the law drive this. And unfortunately for James Comey, when I look at this indictment, I see a guy who lied under oath.
Well, look, you know my position on this. In general, my position is when incoming administrations start, what you don't want to do is get in this endless habit of going after everybody in the previous administration, because once you do that, I'm just talking about it at the philosophical level, once you do that, then every incoming administration will go after the previous administration. And then over time, no one will want to get involved in government. No one will want to be the president of the United States. No one will want to be in the cabinet or anything else, because they're all going to end up in jail. And that's when you end up in banana republic level stuff. And we don't want to do that. Now, that being said, if it looks like the head of the FBI lied under oath about concocting a dossier that was designed to destroy the incoming president of the United States, and then think of all of the fallout around Russia, and that you literally couldn't talk about it on YouTube without them blowing apart your channel. And then if you even connect that to how they treated, Trump during COVID appears out of nowhere, like there's just so much stuff there. If we're ever to get an honest assessment of what we went through for all of those years, maybe it starts with this. But I would say this, James Comey, if you are innocent, even though you were very excited for Donald Trump to be in a double wide near the fence, if you are innocent, well, we have a justice system that largely does work. So you have nothing to worry about. But if it turns out that you did lie under oath and you did allow for Andrew McCabe to be the anonymous source that led to this entire utter fiasco, well, then you might be in a little bit of trouble. However, you do have a mainstream media that will launder the lies for you during the entire thing, and that's what we have to poke holes in. We'll have more on that in a second, but first, Rumble Premium. This episode is brought to you by Rumble Premium, the home of free speech and exclusive content from voices that matter. With Rumble Premium, you get ad-free viewing, access to exclusive shows, and premium features across the platform. We're talking about Steven Crowder's Mug Club, Tim Pool's Timcast, and Russell Brand's Raw Commentary, plus tons of other bold creators you won't find anywhere else. Whether it's breaking news, real talk, or the content that challenges the narrative, Rumble Premium puts you in the front row. Support creators who actually say what they mean and mean what they say. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin to join today. That's rumble.com/premium/Rubin, because the truth shouldn't come with a filter. Okay, so let's stick with this Comey thing for a second, and let's back up. You guys know I love the time machine, so we're going to go all the way back over the last couple of years to all of the, not all the times, a small portion of the times that the mainstream media told us that Russia hacked the election. Now, why would they tell us that Russia hacked the election? Could it have something to do with the former FBI director who allowed for an anonymous source to create the Steele dossier that basically made it seem like there was an entire investigation into whether Donald Trump had been compromised? Okay, you got it. Here's the compilation.
Russia hacking the election to elect Trump is the end of our democracy. Votes were definitely affected. Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
Russia did hack the election. No doubt. The Russians hacked the election.
Yes, Russia hacked the election.
Fact, Russia hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
The president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President Trump says he still wonders if the Russians hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
If he admits it, it casts a shadow on his victory over Hillary Clinton.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election.
Let's be clear, Russia hacked the election.
Definitively, Russia hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
Election-related cyber hacking.
Cyber hacking of U.S. elections. Cyber hacking of the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
Russia was cyber hacking the election.
The CIA, the FBI, NSA.
All of these intelligence organizations.
17 intelligence agencies.
All conclude that Russia hacked the election.
There's a lot of hacks. I just don't know if it involves any hacking. No, Russia didn't. There's no evidence of it or anything like that. But why did they all say it? Because you guys know. The Democrat, this is what the deep state, this is what the swamp, this is what the thing is, right? It creates a fake dossier. It launders the lies through the New York Times. Then everyone on mainstream media, the election was hacked. It was hacked. Cyber hacking, Russia, definitively. And it was all utter nonsense. If only we had another compilation where there was another worldwide scandal that they did. We do.
Science is truth. You know, science is truth.
What is the impact to public health when people are openly questioning the science?
Now is the time to do what you're told.
By not hearing the truth, by not listening to the scientists, they are prolonging how bad the economy will be.
When I see somebody out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I instantly think you are a threat, or you are selfish, or you are a COVID denier, and you definitely haven't been vaccinated.
Either wear a mask or get the fuck out.
What does this have? Are you vaccinated?
I am triple vaccinated.
So why are you wearing the mask? Seek out the scientists and listen to their advice.
Listen to scientists. Listen to the scientists.
Trust the experts.
We're going to trust science. We're going to trust the experts.
Parents who say, well, I need to do my own research, makes you think of that cartoon I saw of the tombstone that said, I did my own research.
Republicans have given their voters license to believe whatever they want to believe.
Heard somebody saying, listen to the scientists. Do that.
Let's listen to the scientists.
That phrase, do your own research, it's popping up a lot in conversations about coronavirus and about COVID vaccines. Doing your own research, it seems so innocent, but it can have serious consequences.
God forbid you do your own research and start thinking. You might realize that these people are all liars. But you see the point, right? You see how that is directly connected. So they ran and they all repeated the exact same thing about Russia, and a hacked election. And then they turned out, and it all turned out to be a lie. And then they did the exact same thing with COVID. And the question is, what will they do next? Because there's another one coming, right? Like, of course, as George W. Bush said, you can't get fooled again. Fool me one time. But they will do it. And an awful lot of people will be fooled again. Now, fortunately, we have some good people in this administration that are trying to clean up all of this stuff. So you've got a Department of Justice that's looking into whether our previous FBI director was basically a criminal. That's what's happening with Comey. And you've got guys like RFK who are now in charge of health of HHS. And what is he doing? Well, he's calling out the fact that so much of our mainstream media and much of our political elite have been bought out by Big Pharma.
Particularly the evening news shows are just bracketed one after the other by pharmaceutical ads.
Brought to you by Pfizer. Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
And so, you know, you look at somebody like Anderson Cooper. I think Anderson Cooper makes about $20 million. You know, give or take. If you say he's got a $20 million salary and 75% of that or 80% of that is coming from the pharmaceutical companies, that's who his real boss is.
Yeah. And that also would connect you to other things we've been talking about lately. I don't know, a guy like Jimmy Kimmel who gets 16 mil a year to tell the country that it's racist and to lie about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, et cetera, or we could do the Colbert version of that, or the Jon Stewart version of all of that, right? What the left seems to be extremely good at, because it controls the machinery still, is that while shows like this and people online, we have to build our own audiences, we have to go against the narrative, we're the ones that have to deal with the algorithmic manipulation and the shadow banning and all of those things. And again, as I always say, that doesn't mean I'm right about everything. But I think anyone watching this is going, well, Dave's trying as hard as he can to tell you the truth. And is that what you think? Well, I guess a lot of people do. A lot of people still watch some of that stuff and they go, boy, these people really are trying. But then when you just look at what's behind it, and when you suddenly go, boy, Anderson Cooper or any of these people that are just figureheads, right? They're just actors in a chair, repeating Russia, repeating believe, trust the science, blah, 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 blah. And then you suddenly are like, well, boy, that guy gets $20 million a year to host that show. And oh, it turns out that 70% of that budget is from the pharmaceutical companies who he's pushing on the show. Maybe there's something there. So all of that being said, the thrust of today's show is not something I do often, but the thrust has been lefties, Democrats, machine, those of you progressing on the bus who are about to drive into the chasm. You don't have to do this. I'm Pollyannish in this. I don't think you people will come back. I think that Bill, unfortunately, hopefully Bill jumps off the bus right before Bill Maher jumps off the bus right before it careens over. But you don't have to, because you weren't always like this. Flashback, 1992.
They're a new generation of Democrats, Bill Clinton and Al Gore, and they don't think the way the old Democratic Party did. They've called for an end to welfare as we know it, so welfare can be a second chance, not a way of life. They've sent a strong signal to criminals by supporting the death penalty, and they've rejected the old tax and spend politics. Clinton's balanced 12 budgets, and they've proposed a new plan investing in people, detailing $140 billion in spending cuts they'd make right now. Clinton Gore, for people, for a change.
So the Democrats were not always like that. They do not have to be like that in the future. Again, it doesn't mean you're going to vote for them, but it would be healthy for the country if there was a sane, moderate Democrat Party, not the one we have right now. So the Democrats could go back to a time when they cared about border security, right? We've shown you videos of Clinton and Obama and Hillary Clinton all talking about sane borders and immigration policies. A time when they cared about balanced budgets. They could go back to that. Right? They could go back to the guy who, yes, did he rape an intern and stick a cigar in her vagina while she was wearing a blue dress while he was on the phone with then Majority Leader Trent Lott? Yes. But is that better than what they got now? Yes. And that is the point. That is also our program. I thank you for watching. We've got a post-game show coming up in moments at rubinreport.locals.com. And I'll be in Australia, in case you forgot, daverubin.com/events. Adios.
See, as you can see, the more you f*** around, the more you're going to find out.